Salutations, dear audience. Prepare to be inspired and empowered as we delve into the realm of business triumph on Elevate Your Business. I'm Ed Jarecki, your host for today's enlightening episode. Thank you for being a part of this enriching experience. Our show is dedicated to enlightening and equipping business owners, professionals, and aspiring entrepreneurs like you with essential knowledge and insights from experts who have achieved success in their life and business. Today's guest exemplifies this mission, so make yourself comfortable, unwind, and let's extend a hearty greeting to our incredible guest today, Grace McCooey. Grace is a founder of Instant Replay Fashion, a fashion technology company that works to make brands more sustainable and profitable. She is also the founder of a mental health charity, the Monmouth County Snack Shack, which works to spread awareness and raise money for mental health, along with being an incredibly active member and leader in a multitude of other human improvement committees, activities, and events. As Grace joins us on the show, she'll shed light on what success means to her personally and how her definition has evolved, as well as one or two of her top challenges and the associated lessons learned. And finally, for today, we'll explore how Grace has leveraged innovation in her business to work and to overcome challenges and achieve her goals. So join me in welcoming Grace McCooey as we embark on another incredible episode of Elevate Your Business. And without further ado, welcome to the show, Grace. It's great to see you again. How are you doing?
Hi, Ed. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. It's great to see you again. I love getting
Yes.
to know you a little bit.
Yes. No, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here today and share my story.
Yeah, as we talked briefly, you just have an incredible amount of positive, inspiring things that you're doing. Could you share a little bit more about yourself and the work that you're doing?
Yeah. So I'm a sophomore here at Princeton, and I'm also a member of the field hockey team here. And kind of my story of how everything began for Instant Replay was initially senior year of high school because of field hockey. I was kind of at a point where when everyone was looking for colleges, I was at that point where I was kind of ready to move on, do something more. So I started just helping out the local boutique in my hometown. And that's when I first discovered the main issue with overproduction in fashion and how there was a huge dilemma I wanted to solve. So that was when I first set out to build an app that would help boutiques sell their unsold inventory on an app and kind of just create a giant virtual discounted boutique. And that's what really dove me and expedited me into the fashion space. And then one day I read this article telling me how there was $500 billion worth of unsold inventory getting destroyed every single year. And that was what really made me discover that this is a huge issue that I wanted to solve. So I started going to New York City a lot and talking to all these different fashion brands and really just asking them, what are they doing with their unsold inventory? And that's when I discovered it's such a huge issue. And yes, working with boutiques is great, but I have to solve it at the source with the brands. So I started working with some larger kind of athleisure brands to help them throw pop-up events at boarding schools and yoga studios to help them liquidate their unsold inventory directly to students. So this would help protect their brand image, protect their brand status, and also allow them to liquidate and get their clothing in the consumers' hands of the younger generation. And so I did that all throughout senior year. And then I was super lucky when I got to Princeton in an entrepreneurship class. It felt like fate. I met my two co-founders, Neva and Larkin. And they came on as my two co-founders, Neva, our CTO, and Larkin, our COO. And the three of us kept working on Instant Replay and throwing these events at college campuses, first doing our Ivy League tour and then expanding. And that's when we discovered that, yes, this liquidation is amazing and is helping with this overproduction issue. But we saw that there was even more potential there as brands started coming to us, not just for liquidation, but they saw us as the people who understood the Gen Z market and why items sold versus didn't. So that's when brands started coming to us, asking us information about products, why this was selling, this didn't. And so we launched technology in our pop-ups to make them more innovative and collect more information and data behind consumer decision making. So we launched this idea that at all our pop-up events, there was no longer price tags. There were these QR codes that the customers would scan these QR codes and they would be able to give us feedback on the items and see more information about the items. And in doing so, we were able to quantify how much interest certain items got and then the feedback behind it, like why someone would put an item back. Was it the price, color, style, things like in that nature? So in doing so, we were able, for example, one streetwear brand we worked with, we were able to take their information. We saw they were the most scanned product at our event, but no one was buying it. And we got the feedback because of price. That was the biggest issue. So after we did that and gave them that feedback, we were able to redo pricing with them. And then the next event, they sold out. So that's why we currently realize, okay, there's a huge issue behind what consumers want and what brands are producing and offering their customers. And so that's why we're currently working on an app, which is going to launch this summer, which will allow consumers to give brands feedback, get discounts, and be able to interact more closely with the brands. And for brands to finally understand their consumers and fix this overproduction issue at the source. So that's kind of the story of how it began and how we've been working on Instant Replay for, I think, over 3 years now. So it's been an exciting journey of definitely ups and downs, but it's kind of the short-winded from beginning till now.
What an incredible story. And so, how many different fashion companies do you have lined up that are just like, holy cow, I want this? I mean, the data behind this is just, it's astounding.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it started off, it was actually crazy. In the beginning, it was always this idea of we were really, because we were young in the space, we kept trying to get brands to work with us and it was super difficult. And then we finally hit a point this past year where we were finally no longer selling out at events. We hit the first time where we had so many brands wanting to work with us and giving us clothing that we were like, oh my goodness, we were working with like 10,000 units and we were still bootstrapping this, doing it out of my parents' garage in New Jersey. So we would have boxes and boxes of clothing and just kind of have to bring it to an event. And so now I think we worked with, I think, over 50 different brands. So a lot of different brands. Yeah. And now the data side is really going to allow us to scale. So that's exciting.
Yeah, no doubt. Absolutely. What an incredible story. So, you've been at this for about 3 years. You've had some interesting ups and downs, it sounds like.
Yeah.
But to start with, let me ask the first question. How do you define success?
So this is an interesting question because I feel like being someone at definitely a competitive university, I feel like I don't necessarily define success like most people do here at Princeton. I feel for me, my biggest, I know I want to be an entrepreneur and I know I want to build companies. That's kind of my main goal and my main mission, especially social ventures. That's ever since taking John Dehner's Ventures for Changing the World freshman year, I was like, social ventures are what I want to do. Ventures that not only help society, but also they can be profitable. Like people don't realize the two can be very symbiotic.
Yeah.
So for me, I define success as building out something that's bigger than myself. Like for me, I want to build companies that outlive me and do so much more than I can do as an individual. And I think for me, the biggest thing that I would find successful is if I can build something that helps society and makes a big enough change where I can see some good happening in the world that is because of a company. And I think nowadays companies are some of the best way to really change society.
I think that's a wonderful definition. And so, over this last few years, has your definition of success evolved at all? Has it changed?
Definitely. I think coming into school and coming into college, you think a lot about, you really want to make money, which I mean, there's nothing wrong with making money. And I think money is such an enabler to allow us to travel, to allow us to live the life we want and stuff like that. But I think I finally felt like as I grown a little bit older, I've discovered that yes, money is great and that it can be a determinant of success. But I think it's really shifted where it would make me so much happier if I could impact a lot of people's lives rather than just make a lot of money. And I think that's something that's definitely changed over time, which I'm happy that it's kind of shifting away from that and more towards just how many people's lives can I impact.
I applaud and congratulate you on that definition because I can tell you from my own experience, I'm definitely there now and have been for a
Yeah.
while, but I wasn't through my 20s. It took me into my 30s before I figured that out. So the fact that you've already been able to reach that understanding, that vision, and just have such a passion around helping humanity, helping Mother Earth.
Yeah,
There's so much that we can do, and the technologies of today really could enable a much better life for all 2 or 3 billion people on this planet if we wanted it to. But it's people like you and your visions and your continue to press on, not compromising. Yes, we can make money. We can also do that in balance with helping people and helping the world. So I appreciate
totally.
that.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And so, as I'd indicated, you've already alluded to a few challenges in your journey. What are one or two of those key challenges and the associated lessons learned?
Yes, I think one of the biggest challenges that I have faced that honestly I didn't expect as much until we really dove into the industry was because my co-founders, both of them graduated Princeton last year, and myself, who's a sophomore, we're obviously young, especially in the professional world and in the fashion space, especially. And I think one of the biggest issues we have faced is because fashion is so established on your connections, your experience, your age, it's an industry based a lot on just who you are, who you know. And as we're first entering the space, especially with a new innovative product that's a little bit different than how fashion typically operates, I think we definitely have experience having to establish ourselves and experience a little bit of almost like ageism in a sense, where people might not take us as serious because we are newer to the space or because we are young in the space. So I think that's something that it definitely was hard for us to get brands to trust us or get brands to work with us because we were these young, crazy kids with these bold ideas and doing things that people weren't doing before. And I think that was a challenge that we really had to overcome and think of creative ways to build trust within brands. If that meant offering our services for free, if it meant traveling all over to talk to people in person, and kind of thinking of creative ways to get around this so that we can kind of learn to establish ourselves, even going to events and kind of meeting people and just trying to figure out how do you get into this space, which I feel like is a space that definitely has shut doors and is difficult to get into. And I think people don't realize fashion is an industry where it is a lot based on age and who you know and who you are. So I think that's something that we've been pushing through to help go against it and just establish ourselves, when in the beginning it definitely was super difficult.
So my guess is the conversations with all of these large fashion designers has changed a lot over these last couple of years. Do they treat you with the respect that you're bringing to the table, something that really solves a huge problem, makes them a lot of money? How are they treating
Yeah.
you today?
I think it's definitely been better, where I think brands see us as all we're able to offer them economically and environmentally, where they understand that. And even though our age, they still see what we're offering them. But I think it's definitely still something where it is still even today more difficult for us to kind of get these deals and work with these people because we are young. So I do still think we're sometimes looked at a bit differently, relatively speaking, to other people, but it's getting better. I think over time, and the more we do, the more we work with brands, it truly does become a stacking process. When one brand takes a jump and a risk on us and started working with us, then you saw brands that collaborate with that one brand started working with us, and it all kind of stacks because they fashion brands all want to jump on to the newest trend. So that's very helpful.
Well, I can appreciate that very much because I was a young up and comer and very driven and competitive in my earlier youth. And I had the same stigma. Getting people to respect who I was
Yeah.
with the knowledge and capability I brought to the table was a very large challenge. And of course, there's challenges throughout the journey, but I can empathize and appreciate that. But keep doing what you're doing because
Yeah.
you're already making a considerable impact. I applaud that. And
Thank
so
you.
the last question, innovation. Your whole solution is really innovation based. And so can
Yes.
you talk a little bit more about where and how you're using innovation today and where you see it going in the future?
I think that's something where, even thinking back to how I initially began instant replay and to where it is today, it's continuing to innovate and change. And it's super cool, but super crazy how when you have a startup company, it's always changing. Every single day, your company's changing little by little and having to innovate and change with the industry and everything going on. And I think for us, our biggest innovation currently is kind of taking this idea of us knowing the liquidation space and the fashion space, and then how do we scale that, and how do we use technology to leverage collecting data that prior was untapped and uncollected. So for us, we pretty much, our biggest innovation is trying to figure out and offer consumers the ability to finally be able to almost speak to brands and interact with brands like they never have before. And that's why our app really is going to be the key to unlocking the bridge and closing that gap between consumers and brands. And our app, kind of small innovations here and there, like for example, getting rid of price tags and doing QR codes to help quantify interest and things in that nature, have just allowed us to really collect information that just wasn't collected beforehand. And I think it's something that in the beginning, it becomes a little bit difficult because it kind of adds friction to shopping and is something that people don't fully understand. But when you start to give, for example, discounts, or when you give certain features that they could give immediate feedback to brands, it shows that innovation is actually a very positive thing. And I think something that we saw very cool was that because in fashion, it's super important to get feedback so that you can make changes on the clothing you're making and not produce stuff that no one wants. And we discovered that, yes, this is amazing in fashion, and that's where we're going to begin. We discovered that even we started talking with some like skincare and beauty brands because they want this information just as much as the fashion brands do, or even in the food space. So it's really cool because if our app launches properly and does exactly what it's supposed to do and what we have been doing in our pop-up space, then it will allow us to take the same idea of collecting consumer data and using it in all different industries. So I think we're super excited because honestly, this innovative technology in the app can be used in so many different spaces to just really eliminate that overproduction and eliminate that gap of brands guessing and consumers not always getting what they want from brands because there's just a lack of knowledge on both ends.
That surprises me a little bit. I mean, this is 2024. The digital age has been upon us for, people could argue about the time frame, but at least the last 10, 15 years. So what you're bringing to the table has got to be it's a gold mine, it's a platinum mine in its value. So I can imagine that if you don't already, you're going to have a pipeline and ultimately have much more control over your destiny. Now, I don't know much about the fashion industry, but
Yeah.
just understanding general business and the power and value of data, that by itself has got to be incredible. With the other things that you're doing, that's a very, very powerful solution suite that you're offering.
Yeah, it's so interesting how behind fashion is, relatively speaking, to other industries. Like they really are very behind in just the technology and data space. Like they really do lag behind a lot of other industries, which is super interesting and causes a lot of the issues like the sustainability issue.
I'll bet. So if there was one takeaway that you could offer our audience to say, what, as you're going through your journey, as you're considering entrepreneurship, what would that be?
I think the biggest thing I would tell people is don't give up. And I think that sounds so cliche and just a very average thing to say, but I honestly do believe in if anyone wants to really build something and really is serious about something, you need to be on the verge of being crazy and being crazy obsessive. Like I have been working on this in high school when people were like, what the heck are you doing? Like you're super crazy. And then my team and I, people, all three of us are just crazy hard workers. We have those nights till 2 in the morning. We have those days where we fight. We have those days where it becomes a lot. And I think the biggest thing, honestly, especially when you're young, is people get very excited about an idea for a day, for a month, for a year, and they give up too early. But you have to realize that things might not happen in a year, might not happen in 2 years, but you're super close. And I think that ability to just be so obsessed where you're like, no, I'm going to find a way to make it happen because everything is fixable and everything has a solution. You just got to keep working to find that solution, I think is the key of just like not giving up because there's a lot of times where you feel like, oh my gosh, what is this for? But you just can't give up and you need to keep pushing.
Learn, adapt, and persevere is what I heard. Is that a good summary?
Yes, totally. No, that's a very good summary.
Any final thoughts or comments?
No, I think this podcast is super awesome. And I think honestly, my biggest advice to just everyone as I see people is people come to me every single day with amazing ideas. And I think my biggest advice I try to tell people is just go do it. Just go try. Like, I rather see someone go try something for a year, for 2 years, for 3 years and fail than never try and sit there wondering if they did try. Because I think that's a huge thing is people get nervous to make that jump or that leap of faith and do something atypical. Like this is atypical of me to go out and do this year after year instead of getting an internship, working at a big company. But I choose to believe in myself, believe in my team, believe in the company. And I think taking those leap of faiths is something people need to do a lot more if they want to create something kind of new and innovative.
I don't disagree, and that applies to everybody in all walks of life, at all ages, and in all aspects of their career. You've got to try. Matter of fact, I had a team, and I've got a plaque that sits outside my office on the wall. And as I was evaluating, do I stay the corporate America direction, or do I do another spinoff and start my own business as my sole focus? I went back to Teddy Roosevelt's quote, And it's not the critic that counts. It's the person in the arena, the person with the
Yeah,
marred with the blood, sweat, the tears, but gets up time and time again and continues to press forward to accomplish their goals, to achieve their dreams. And I think that is an excellent quote for what you're recommending as well is do it. Just do it. And yes, it's
just do
not an
it.
easy journey, but follow your passion, follow your dream, make a difference, and just do it.
Totally. I've never heard that quote, but I really like it.
I want to thank you all for joining us today, and a special thank you to our incredible guest, Grace McCooey, for sharing her insights, experiences, and success tactics with us. We hope this conversation has left you inspired and motivated to embrace the challenges of entrepreneurship with vigor, innovation, and adaptability. Remember, success comes in many forms, and it's essential to define it for yourself. Take the lessons shared by Grace to heart as you navigate your own entrepreneurial journey. Embrace change, seek out opportunities for growth, and always be willing to adapt to the ever-evolving landscape of business. Thank you once again to Grace McCooey, and thank you all for tuning in. We look forward
Thank
to
you so
seeing you
much
next
for having
time
me.
as we explore the stories behind incredible entrepreneurs. Stay resilient and stay innovative, everybody. Have a wonderful day.